Okay, here we go. It's Tuesday, January 7th. We have the fallout from NFL Black Monday. We have NBA and NHL games to recap. We have Kyrie Irving news. We have a bunch of baseball moves to discuss. This is the Early Game Podcast. Listen to the show in the mornings, on your commute, whenever and wherever, so you can be part of today's sports conversations. Let's go. Okay, so it was Black Monday in the NFL. And usually the day after the season ends, we get a bunch of firings, a bunch of head coach firings. And yesterday was no different. Except for the fact that we didn't get a bunch. So the morning started out, after Gerard Mayo was already fired on Sunday, the morning started out with the news that the Jaguars fired head coach Doug Peterson. And I'll be honest, I liked the Doug Peterson hire when it happened. The issue for him came because after 3 seasons at the helm, 3 seasons in which he had Trevor Lawrence, who we got tank watch back when Trevor Lawrence was coming out of Clemson. We had tank watch for him, if you remember. And the Jets and the Jaguars, it was controversial. The Jets won a game late in the season, and the Jaguars ended up getting Trevor Lawrence, and they needed a head coach, a normal head coach. After all that happened with Urban Meyer there, they needed a normal head coach to come in and to fix the system, to give a team that desperately needed some sort of normalcy. And so in 3 seasons there, Doug Peterson goes 22-29. Which the crazy thing to me is that 22-29 record, that 42% win rate, that is the third most in Jaguars history. That is the third highest win rate in Jaguars history. So behind Tom Coughlin and Jack Del Rio for a minimum of 10 games coached, that is the third most in Jags history. And so it didn't go as planned. It did not go as planned for Doug Peterson. But ultimately, they got a good amount out of Doug Peterson. They got that big boy in the room after Urban Meyer, that whole Urban Meyer saga. They needed that big boy, and Doug Peterson provided that. He went 9-8 in his first season there. He won the AFC South. He did that again in his second season. He went 9-8 and won the AFC South. Now Trevor Lawrence was much better in his first season than he was in the second and his third. He took a step back in his second season. They lost, if you remember correctly, they in 2023, they lost 5 of their last 6. And the thing that people really got upset at yesterday was the fact that Trent Baalke, however you pronounce his last name, that is a tough spelling, Baalke, he kept his job. And we'll get to that in a second because there was a late night development on that front. But I think that there's a good argument for both sides for Doug Peterson. You're losing a guy, you're getting rid of a guy who clearly had success with Trevor Lawrence. You don't always find you draft quarterbacks and you try to hire coaches that are if you're so bad and you've gotten the first pick in the draft. There's a lot of times where that team was so bad they'll have to hire a new coach. And it's not so often that you're able to find a coach who has success in that scenario. And Doug Peterson, ultimately, in a results-driven league, had success with Trevor Lawrence. He went 9-8 in his first 2 seasons and won the AFC South in both of his first 2 seasons. Yes, the offensive numbers declined for the offense in the first from year 1 to year 3. From year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3. The offensive numbers slid. And the argument for why they should have fired Doug Peterson clearly makes a lot of sense in that regard. But you have to be wondering, could the prudent decision have been to keep Doug Peterson at least for a little bit longer? Let him figure it out with the quarterback that he has proven success with? So late last night, Shad Khan and Trent Balake, they're on some sort of Zoom together. And Shad Khan says, while Trent Balake is there, sitting next to him, on the Zoom, and I'll be honest, I couldn't even watch this video. It was so cringy for me with the description. Shad Khan said he'd potentially get rid of Trent if a prospective head coach gives him a credible reason for why they felt that way. They were right next to each other on the Zoom screen. There they were, sitting next to each other. And he said that. If you have any sort of doubt in your mind that he's the right GM, don't go challenging players. Don't go challenging your future head coach to give you a reason to fire somebody. Is that how you run an organization? I mean, the amount of bad owners we have in sports that say stupid things. You run an organization by publicly challenging head coach candidates to give you the data, to give you a list of reasons to fire the general manager? Jeez. I get that head coach candidates are desperate for the job. There's only so many. Is this not a red flag? This is now the second team with red flags for hirings. The Jets being the first. I've gotten into that already. I just cannot believe a owner would say something like that. But he wasn't the only owner speaking yesterday. John Mara spoke to the media yesterday about why he was keeping Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. And so earlier in the day, the Giants released a statement saying that they were going to hold on to Daboll and Schoen. I find the statements to be funny. Now, the Dolphins did the same thing the day before. They released a statement saying they were going to keep the head coach and the general manager. And the thing with that is, comparing those two scenarios, is the Dolphins is even funnier or more interesting because the Dolphins could have made the playoffs in Week 18. And the fact that they released the statement doesn't show so much confidence, in my mind. Rather than just having Schefter tweet out, sources say that the Dolphins are going to hold on to their guys. Instead, they have to release an entire statement. You're exposing the fact that there's doubt. If you had Schefter just tweet it out for you, you can pose it that people were wondering. People on Twitter who have big followers were getting asked, and so they inquired. But no, both these teams, the Giants and the Dolphins, released statements. And the Giants released a statement that they're going to hold on to Daboll and Schoen after a 3-14 season. And so let's relive that tenure. They had a playoff appearance 2 years ago. Brian Daboll was the coach of the year. It was all great. They won a playoff game. The turning point, though, for this team and for this regime happened in March 2023. And that was when they re-signed Daniel Jones after his performance that past season. And the last 2 years were history. Obviously, Daniel Jones got hurt last year, and he got hurt this year too. Was playing with injury. Eventually gets traded. Last season, they finished 6-11. They had Tommy DeVito playing for a lot of the season. Remember all that, all those shenanigans. This season, they go 3-14. This is a unique situation, though. Look, there were other issues. Let's not pretend like quarterback was the only thing that derailed them. But so much of what went wrong was because of the most important position in the sport. Daniel Jones was horrible, and his replacements were also horrible. People will say, well, you should have brought in somebody better than Drew Lock. Okay. I don't think that it's fireable for the backup quarterback you bring in not be good enough. And I think Drew Lock, honestly, is probably a backup quarterback on most teams. I can't believe I'm parsing out between backup quarterbacks and third-string quarterbacks. But Drew Lock probably slots in as a backup quarterback on most teams. The quarterback position, though, I get it. It was a disaster. Was the defense bad? Yes. The defense was horrible. They ranked 21st in opponents' points per play. They were 24th in yards per game allowed. Was the offensive line bad? Yeah. Their pressure rate against 4 rushers or less they were ranked 29th in the league. They were ranked 21st in the league in pressure rate against the blitz. Both those facets of the Giants game were bad. The offensive line and the defense. That being said, you have to look at Brian Daboll's history as a coach. He worked with Josh Allen from the start. He was successful with Josh Allen from the start. He went on a journey with him from the start. And so, when you have the opportunity for a coach to start fresh, start new with a quarterback and have them choose them, and history shows that coach does well in those scenarios, it's hard to pass that up. Yeah, John Mara has to be thinking, there's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Josh Allen. Right now, the front runner for MVP. We have the guy that gets credit for a lot of his success. The guy's in our building. He's our head coach. One of the top executives to build this Bills team, a lot of the players on the team now, is in our building. He's making the decisions for us. You look back and you think about the whole Daniel Jones saga. Add context there. Daboll and Shane inherited them. They gave him the extension. Who knows what led to that decision? Everyone was kind of scratching their head at the time. Could it have been that John Mara pressured them into giving him the extension? And therefore he's giving them a little bit more leeway after the Jones era ended? Remember, Joe Shane just hit on Malik Neighbors. I'm just pointing that out to say there are arguments in Shane's favor. And to my point I just said before about the fact that maybe there was something going on behind the scenes with that Daniel Jones extension, you have to think that maybe there's more than meets the eye here with the situation in New York. Now, I felt that way yesterday morning when the news came out. Then John Mara faced the media, and I heard his comments. I'll just read you some of them for you. We stunk this year. It's my instinct and my strong belief that we are going in the right direction. It's hard for me to say we're going in the right direction right now because we've been going backwards. Did I read that correctly? In back-to-backs, he contradicted himself in back-to-back sentences. He said, we're going in the right direction, and in the next sentence, he said, we're not going in the right direction. Not an hour later, not 5 minutes later, not in the next question he was asked. In the next sentence. Later he says, the personnel decisions were better than they've been. But after that, he says he believed and he said about the roster, which to me is about personnel, he said, I'm not sure I'm all that confident that it's that much better. How can I say it's better if we win 3 games? There's so much not making sense here. Look, I feel good about Daboll and Shane. It's from a Bills fan who's watched them make moves closely and coach closely for a lot of years. But John Mara seems incapable of making football decisions. I ultimately feel like he might have accidentally made the right one here. I think that it's the right decision to let them cook one more time. Okay, so let's move on. Let's just talk about this Tyreek Hill situation. So he posted on X yesterday, him without a shirt on, giving a peace sign. This was after he made comments on Sunday that wanting to leave the Dolphins. Teams beware. These wide receivers are not worth it. The ones that are going to cause this much drama, they're not worth it. He's not worth the headlines. With all that he gives off the field, all the headlines he makes. He was 134th in the league in yards per reception. Are you kidding me? A stat that literally it encompasses yards after play, how you're running your routes. This guy is getting all the attention. Why can't we give the attention to the linemen, the good linemen in the league, the 300-pound linemen who are providing protection for quarterbacks? Let's give them the attention. These guys aren't worth it. So beware, teams. Just don't think that just because he's Tyreek Hill, he deserves all the pomp and circumstance. Beware. All right. Let's move on to the NBA. Let's do some game recaps here. Blazers at Pistons. Blazers won 118-115. Cade Cunningham had 32 for the Pistons. Detroit currently holds the 9 seed in the East. Suns beat the Sixers 109-99. Bradley Beal had 25 points for the Suns. Tyrese Maxey had 31 for the Sixers. Pacers beat the Nets 113-99. Tyrese Halliburton had 23 for the Pacers. Pacers have now won 3 straight games. Magic beat the Knicks 103-94. Cole Anthony had 24 for the Magic. Magic gained a game on the Knicks, who they're now 2.5 games back of them for the 3 seed. Knicks have lost 3 straight. They have a little bit of a slump going on now. Bucks beat the Raptors 128-104. Dame Lillard had 25 for the Bucks. Bucks have currently in the 5 seed in the East. Bulls beat the Spurs 114-110. Zach LaVine led the Bulls with 35 points. Mavs at Grizzlies. The Mavs have a 4-game losing streak coming in. Grizzlies won this one 119-104, so the losing streak extends to 5 for the Mavs. Jaren Jackson Jr. led the Grizzlies with 35. But before the game, we got news that KYRIE was hurt. Shams Charania tweeted, Dallas Mavericks star Kyrie Irving has a bulging disc in his back and is expected to miss at least 1 to 2 weeks. And so Luka was already hurt. He was seen on a scooter Friday night. Obviously, it's not good. Their two best players are now hurt. They came into the night as the 6th seed. Kyrie was averaging 24 points per game. And it's obviously a loss from that perspective. From the perspective of production, it's a loss. But in the age of load management, on top of the age of the play-in tournament, this could be a blessing in disguise. They had a deep playoff run last year. These guys logged a ton of minutes. Give them a couple weeks to heal. Give them a couple weeks to catch their breaths, to rest their bodies. It is a masked load management. It's the same for Luka. Stay above water. If you can just catch your breath and stay above water. I know they're on a 5-game losing streak, but if you can just catch your breath, stay above water a little bit, finish the season strong, hold on to a playing spot, see if you can make noise that way. Okay. Clippers, Timberwolves. Timberwolves won 108-106, and Anthony Edwards had 37 points for the Wolves. Kings beat the Heat 123-118 in double overtime. DeMar DeRozan had 30. Kings continue to roll post Mike Brown's firing. They've won 5 straight. All right. Let's do hockey recaps. Sabres beat the Caps 4-3 in a shootout. JJ Peterka scored for the deciding shootout goal. Ovi did not score. So cue the Ovi watch music. There is none, maybe someday. He's still 23 away from the record. Canadians beat the Canucks 5-4 in overtime. Nick Suzuki had the overtime winner. Montreal currently is in a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. The Avalanche beat the Panthers 3-1. Devon Taves scored 2 for the Avs. And the Devils beat the Kraken the Devils beat the Kraken 3-2. Andrej Palat scored the deciding goal for the Devils, and they just keep rolling. They're being doubted there in the Eastern Conference, but they're rolling. Currently second in the Metro. All right. Let's finish it off with some baseball because we had some moves over the last couple days. And specifically, we had a move last night when GAVIN LUX was traded to the Reds. Dodgers got back Mike Sirota Mike Sirota, and this is a great player for the Reds. Sirota was a first-round pick. They also got the 37th overall pick in the draft. They're allowed to trade those competitive tax picks, so that returns to the Dodgers. And Lux is going to provide a super utility role for the Reds. He'll play second base, he'll play third base, he'll play outfield. He had a 703 OPS for the Dodgers last year. He had 10 home runs, and this is just a solid ad for them. A team that could use all they can get in a division that the Brewers are perennially good in. But don't act like another team in the NL Central can't make a run this season. Can't make some noise. Especially with all the wild card spots. It's good to see the Reds adding a player like GAVIN LUX. And the other news we got last night was that Michael Lorenzen, he's going to return to the Royals. He agrees to a 1-year, $7 million deal. That's where he pitched last year. He had 2.9 WAR, 3.31 ERA. Look, the Royals clearly have holes in their rotation, but this was a safe bet for them. Low risk, not a lot of years or money. And these moves are the smart ones. Adding these starting pitchers in with a little bit of risk for performance-wise, but he's coming off a good year. Lorenzen's coming off a good year. It feels like the name of the game these last couple years in baseball, and when it comes to adding starting pitching, is can we add quality innings to the back of our rotation? can we add guys that can log a good amount of innings and a good amount of quality ones? Doesn't have to be anything sexy. Does not need to be a big name in the back, unless you're the Dodgers. It doesn't need to be a big names in the back of your rotation. We're seeing teams getting creative, filling the back ends. And so overall, this was a great move by them. Gives them a third or fourth starter in their rotation. And the move we missed yesterday, though, was Charlie Morton agreeing to a deal with the Orioles over the weekend. We didn't mention it yesterday. So he signed for 1 year, $15 million. Man, I can't imagine how Orioles fans feel. They lose out on Corbin Burns, he leaves, and then they sign Charlie Morton to essentially fill that rotation spot. Talk about a slap in the face. The rotation right now is Zach Eflin, Grayson Rodriguez, Charlie Morton, Dean Kramer, Tomoyuki Sagano. They also have Trevor Rogers. They traded for him from the Marlins last year. But you're telling me this team's going to be successful with that rotation? Last week I was wondering what are they going to do to fill the Corbin Burns spot? You lose a player like that, and you need to replace him. Figure out a way to replace that value. When the Yankees lost Juan Soto, they did a solid job recouping the value that was lost. So far they have, and there's already rumors yesterday that they might trade for Luis Arias, and I would be shocked at this point, based on the rumors, if he doesn't end up in pinstripes. But what the Yankees are doing is they are filling the value. They're replacing the value that they lose without Juan Soto. And so the Orioles had to venture to do a similar thing. You lose Corbin Burns, one of the best pitchers in the league. You need to find a way to replace that value. Or at the very least, wait out the market a little bit. Not for Charlie Morton. Don't get me wrong, they're still at the top of the American League. But two teams in the American League East improved their pitching. Yankees added Max Fried. Red Sox added Garrett Crochet. The Orioles were 14th in the league last year with Burns in ERA. The Yankees were 7th. The Red Sox were 17th. The Yankees added Fried. They're going to be a better team. They have Fried. They have Luis Gil. They have Garrett Cole. Carlos Rodon. They will be better than 7th in the league in ERA. The Red Sox will be better than 17th. They will probably be much better than 17th. They added some bullpen pieces. Added Crochet. It seems to be that they're still in the market for starting pitching. Added Walker Buehler. I expect him to have a bounce-back season. The Yankees are still on Roki Sasaki, too. So they could get even better. Let's be realistic about the Orioles for a second. They are second or third best team in the AL East. Can they get a wild card spot? Yes. But once you get to the playoffs, you need dogs. You need starting pitchers. You need guys who will go out and dominate. With Corbin Burns, you had that. And you still couldn't make it out of the first round of the playoffs. Ultimately, I don't think this rotation in the playoffs would be able to compete with the top lineups in the American League. All right, that's a show. Tomorrow we're going to start our NFL playoff previews. We'll have, once again, NBA and NHL recaps. This was the Early Game Podcast. Enjoy your day.